Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everybody. Oh, it's so good to see you. Well, this is an amazing gathering. I am so excited to welcome you all here because the Winnipeg Foundation has really something exciting, well, two exciting things to share with you. One, we're going to talk about vital signs. Vital signs tells us how our community is doing. It's our primary research vehicle. And that primary research vehicle has informed our strategic plan. And so we're going to also share with you about our strategic plan. And as you leave the auditorium theater here, we will have copies of both the vital signs and the strategic plan for you to share and look over. Now, this is a beautiful stage, and on this stage, quite often, there's nonfiction plays happening, comedy, drama, improv. Well, we're going to be sharing a story today, but it's not nonfiction, it's fiction. It's a story about our community. We're going to share with you beyond the statistics of what our community is telling us, and you're going to hear their voice. So I'm so grateful to also be here today because this is a little bit special what's happening in this room right now. We have donors, agencies, staff, and board. How long has it been since we've all been together in a room? And the Winnipeg Foundation is that connective tissue that works with our donors, their care of community, and supports our agencies that are the boots on the ground, doing that hard work. And so this is just amazing that we are all here together in this space where you can actually physically see each other. Because quite often in your work and your generosity or the agencies, you don't get a chance to actually see the whole ecosystem coming together. So this is very special, and I'm really happy that we can host you all here tonight. I'd like to start off by acknowledging the land that we walk upon. This land is Treaty 1 territory and Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dene, and my people, the Red River Métis. But I also want to acknowledge that the wonderful water that we drink comes from Shoal Lake 40. And so please help me in welcoming and acknowledging the land that we walk upon. Are we not working here? Oh, wait, there we go. All right, that'll be my only technical mistake. We'll see if that'll continue. So we have a full agenda today, as you can see. We are going to walk you through vital signs, as mentioned. We have some guests also this evening who are going to walk through and talk about the rigor and the approach on our research. And we're going to move towards unveiling some of the 6 key findings that we found out in within vital signs. And we're going to connect it to how we're going to walk forward with the new strategic plan and talk you through some of our pillars, in particular, the community champion pillar. We're going to share 2 strategic goals within there. It's a big plan. If I was to unpack it with you all night, you'd be here till 9, and I don't think you want to be here that late. And then we're going to close on an invitation of how we can dream bigger together. So it's my honor right now to invite Elder Belinda Vandenbroek to the stage. Belinda I've known for many, many moons, many years, and she has many teachings, so a lot of wisdom, but one in particular, what she's often shared. Let me guess. Okay. I'll meet you over here.
All right. There you go. Thank you for your hand.
One of the many teachings that Belinda has often shared that's inspired me is the importance of loving ourselves, and through that being able to love each other. And so it's an honor to have Belinda here to open up our session in a good way. Please welcome Elder Belinda.
So, this is good? Okay, good. All right, so I don't have to go like this. Should be good. Anyway, my name is Belinda, and I'm an alcoholic. Wrong meeting, I know. But anyway. I have been sober 48 years, and I'm very proud of that. Yeah. And while we're on the subject of sobriety, I have hosted 14 years. This is the 15th year, 3 because of COVID couldn't do it. But I host honoring our sobriety event. I did it for 14 years before COVID. And for me, it meant that, because I used to celebrate my sobriety by myself, with friends and cake and food and stuff like that. And then my sister in 2005 was dying at Riverview. And anyway, so her and I used to plan those every year. So I said, you know what, we need to do this for everybody. That was 2007. And so we planned. The first one we were going to have was February 10th. Her and I planned, and she passed on the 7th. And but I knew we had to do it because she would have wanted that. Anyway, that's just a little story. I got big stories if you want, but then we'll wait for. I will say first the prayer. I'll say it in my language, and I do want to acknowledge that this is my homeland, and I absolutely love my homeland. And so I will say it in my language first, and then I'll say it in English so that you can understand. Hawisemantu ginanaskumet nana nuskagi sikak ni matsuinana. Ginanaskumet nan minagagi nauge gon kamini agutas kitap matisiak westap matisiak questa tutamag. Tagise watisiak tawichito aktasagi itu akisemantu tapwe tagiskeni tamag tansisita sagi itu ak. Kaginoge gon kaminiag ginanaskumet nan kisemantu. Ipagusan mit nan min at baby tap me ago magabi mamo piaganus gat piskak. The baby tap me yak the kiskeni tamaki in an uche coach matis yaki no chikisemantu. Thank you, Creator. Thank you for our lives today, all of us, another day that we can live and love and to learn new things, which is good. Anyway, I asked Creator and I asked him to bring blessings, and very grateful for everything that he gives us here on earth. And the respect for that is absolutely imperative. It's imperative. And our relationship with the land and all that's on the land in this world is so important, and that we need to see each other in a spiritual way. I need to see you in a spiritual way, right? I need to see the trees, the flowers, everything, the water, the air. Those are spiritual things that were given to us by our Creator. And our belief as Indigenous people is we are star people. So what you might be hearing me today might be the first time you'll hear our history in the way that we know it. Because as you are aware, other nations of people came to our homeland over 500 years ago now. And from the time that happened, our lives changed. And at this moment, at this time, the things that you're doing here are absolutely wonderful. And you have to know the history of why the situations are the way they are for Indigenous people, okay? Because things that are happening out there on the street, the sexual exploitation, the harming of children, mothers being beaten, all that didn't happen overnight. That happened from the time of contact because we think differently. We think differently. And the reason why is because that we know, and we don't have to ask anybody's permission for this. We know that we come from Creator. We don't come from the ribs of man. That is not our teaching. So knowing that brings a different perspective into your life, even though if you are Indigenous and you're not aware of that yet, it's innate. It's there. And that has been lost over the last 500 years because there was no teaching that. There was a denying of ourselves as Indigenous people, and that was like from way back, not just residential schools of 100 years. I went for 10 years. And I knew when I woke up, when I quit drinking in 1975, I woke up and I began to realize some things, and I'm thinking, that doesn't seem right. Okay, we had a life before anybody came here. I'm pretty sure we did, you know. But you doubt that because you have been conditioned to believe a different way. And the beliefs that come from another part of the country, the world, were not ours. But if you know the history, you know that religion was forced on our ancestors. So that has been happening for 500 years now. It wasn't just yesterday. It wasn't just 20 years ago or even 100 years ago. And you have to know that because you give your money that you can give to programs to help the people that are on the street, the children leaving CFS, who are in CFS, all those systems. We don't have words for those systems because it was not our way of life. What we had in our world, if you will, and I don't like using the word system, we don't have a word for that in my language, but it was the family. The family was everything, everything. The rites of passages were lost, and I made it my business as a grandmother 25 years ago to tell my sister that she had to have a walking out ceremony for her children. Because the rites of passages is what tells you who you are and what your role will be in this world. There hadn't been rites of passages for hundreds of years. So how were you to know who you are or where you come from? Nobody knew the history because we were told the history that was different from ours. And I know people don't like the word colonization, but I am going to say it and I'm going to explain it, okay? Because when I was trying to figure things out, I didn't realize how, I don't even know what the word would be, brainwashed would be one word, in my 10 years in residential school, but I didn't know that while I was there. It wasn't until I left, and then I quit drinking, and then I woke up and started to question everything. And you know what? It took me 10 years to undo that brainwashing in my head. Yeah. That's how hard I had to work. I was sober. I was awake. I was alert. I was aware. People on the streets that are out on the streets, they're not. They're not aware. They don't know because nobody told them. When I went to university in 1993, I went when I was 45 because I figured if I don't do it now, it'll never happen. So away I went. Anyway, so I went to university there, met one of the students. I forgot I was like 45, and I'd go to the washrooms and be writing on the walls, and I'd go, oh my goodness, who would do that? I mean, they're 16, 17, 18, hello, yeah. But anyway, so that took me a little while to figure out. So anyway, one of the students came to class, and she had such a sad look on her face, and I knew something was different, but I wasn't sure if I should ask her, but I did. And I said, hi, I said, is there something wrong? I said, you look so sad. And I don't know if I hope I can tell this without crying. She turned 18 the day before. She went back home that night to her foster or her adopted parents' place or foster, I'm not sure which, but anyway, she went home. And when she got there, All her belongings and suitcase was outside the door, and she couldn't even go in the house. I'm not sure even where she stayed that night, but she managed to find a place. So that's just 1993, 94. Our children are coming out of CFS, have no idea, not even who their family is. And remember, I said the family system was the most important in our world. That and Creator, Kisemantu. And the feeling when I say Kisemantu in my language is different when I say Creator even. But you know what I mean. So, in being able to provide the money that you can donate to help people out there, that is truly an amazing, wonderful thing. What a good feeling that must be. Money was not a part of our language. And in our language, we only have animate and inanimate, okay? We don't have he or she in my language, of Cree language, because we're equal. We are not superior of each other in our culture. And so that means equality. And our men knew how to live respectfully with the women in the community. And you know why? Because they knew that they came from a woman. They were brought into this world. The women are the portal of life. And when you know that, and you feel that, you would never hurt a woman. You would never hurt your children. But that's what's happening out there. All the terrible things that have come as a result of the disconnections years way before residential school, things started to change. And this is what I call the 500-year-old lie. And I want to tell you this because it's important, okay? Because likely you don't know the story and the history like we do, like I do, because I made it my business to know. So when the people came, our ancestors welcomed them, they took them in, they showed them how to live, they had places for them to live. They were in the community with our ancestors. My ancestors continued to live their life like they did for thousands of years. They didn't need to ask anybody permission to do what they were doing. So the rites of passages continued, the spiritual ways of living continued, the ceremonies continued. Life was happening for them. So when those things are happening, and I don't know if any of you have ever been to we say Maatutisan, other people say sweat lodge, and they understand that. So when I went to my first sweat lodge, and we were outside with the fire, that Maatutisan was shaking 1,000 RPMs, if you can imagine that. Well, my eyes just about blew out of my eyeballs. What the? And I was like this. And that was just the one time. Other ceremonies and other things have happened. So I know who I am. I know I come from Creator. So when their newcomers are watching our ancestors living their lives, doing the ceremonies they're doing, all of that, if you don't understand something, what do you usually do? You make a judgment call on it, because you're trying to figure out what's going on. But if you don't know and you don't ask, you will make a judgment. And that judgment call 500 years ago from the newcomers to my ancestors, whatever they're doing, it must be evil. It must be the work of the devil. Pure colonization today, February the 8th, 2023, is that now our own people believe that lie. And they will call people like me, who totally embraces my ancestors' way of living and believing, I am doing the work of the devil. You need to be aware of that. You can't ever assume that Indigenous people that you meet are traditional, because they're not. And if they are Christian, you might be insulting them. You need to know that. Some parents have said in First Nations community, I don't want my child taking in any powwow or anything like that. That's pure example today, 2023. So find out what you can, learn what you can about our history. It's important, because here you are, you're supporting the lives of people who have been lost in the systems, in CFS, the people on the street, all of that. And all of us have wonderful, beautiful, loving hearts. That's why you're here tonight. And the work that's going to happen in the future here looks amazing. And you know, I could like talk forever, but I won't. Thank you. Thank you. I'll just take you out.
I'll take you down. Yeah, I'll go down first. Thank you, Belinda, for sharing your stories with us, for inviting in spirit, and for opening up our gathering here in a good way. Chimigwich, and thank you for joining us. We're now going to open up into a video that talks about vital signs. So we're going to cue up the video here in just a moment.
We asked Winnipeggers to tell us about what they think are the most important issues facing our community, and you responded. This is Winnipeg's Vital Signs 2022, a project of the Winnipeg Foundation. Vital Signs is a street-level look at what matters most to citizens, with the data to back it up. From mental health and addictions to a sense of belonging and social isolation, you gave your input on a wide range of subjects, and what's emerged is Winnipeg's Vital Signs 2022 report. You may recall, the Winnipeg Foundation launched its first ever Vital Signs report in 2017. The priorities identified in the 2022 Vital Signs have informed and influenced the Winnipeg Foundation's new strategic plan. The research undertaken is critical information for anyone interested in the state of our city and in our community's ability to respond to the challenges ahead. You will also find stories and commentary from individuals and organizations currently working on the issues that Vital Signs is highlighting. So pick up a copy of Winnipeg's Vital Signs 2022 publication or download the full report from winnipegvitalsigns.org today. Winnipeg's Vital Signs 2022, helping your community, informing your community foundation.
So Vital Signs is our primary research vehicle that measures the well-being of our community. It's much more than statistics. It's a voice. It was a combination of qualitative and quantitative approach. On the quantitative approach, 1,200 Winnipeggers were surveyed to give us input into this current state of our city and describe where they are in terms of well-being. And we took back our community of validation to have those conversations. There were several online groups, one-on-one meetings, all around that qualitative research. There was tons of conversations we have, and we're going to unpack some of that for you. And research is so important, so important. And there's many organizations in this room, agencies, that use research themselves. And through Vital Signs, we also looked to other third-party research to also inform it. So it was a combination of surveys that we developed, having qualitative conversations, but using pre-existing research done by other organizations to paint that picture. I have the pleasure of introducing some guests that are going to help tell the story about Vital Signs and our journey. First is Molly McCracken, is the Manitoba Director of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives and Independent Charitable Research Institute. For over 10 years, Molly has managed quantitative and qualitative research projects, and she was the research manager on the 2022 Vital Signs project. Please welcome.
Thank you so much, Sky, and wonderful to see all of you here this evening. Thank you so much, Belinda Vandenbroek, for your teachings. It reminded me of what I learned from another elder once, that I'm not a person with a spirituality, but a spirit in a human form right now. And so thank you for grounding me in that, and for everything that you shared tonight. It's very powerful. We are so proud to be part of the Winnipeg Vital Signs project in 2022 to help develop this tool for all Winnipeggers so that we may better understand and ultimately improve the quality of life here in Winnipeg for all people. However, if I say the word statistics or indicator, your eyes might glaze over a little bit, but numbers people do also like to have fun. Did you hear about the statistician who had their head on a bucket of ice and their feet in a red-hot oven? And when they were asked how they felt, they replied, "On average, I feel just fine." We were not just looking for averages here, but detailed and nuanced ways to tell a story about Winnipeg over the past 5 years, and particularly related to COVID. This Vital Signs project is grounded in the Canadian Index of Well-Being, which is developed by the University of Waterloo, and has 8 life indicators and 8 life domains and 64 indicators in total. And we wanted to make sure that this project here in Winnipeg in particular had certain characteristics. Most importantly, are these indicators meaningful? Do they report things that matter to us, things that are our strengths, things that we want to improve, and something that we can change? We used high-quality, reliable statistics and indicators from Statistics Canada or other government sources that could be tracked over time so we could measure progress and look at trends. And we also used local Winnipeg-based statistics that could be compared to provincial and national stats. And we were looking for numbers that could learn about experiences of different people, different genders, racialized Winnipeggers, Indigenous people, Black and people of color, LGBTQ people, people with disabilities, and by age. And also we wanted to have indicators that could be of use to the community, because this is a community report, and we hope that some of these can be taken up by community groups and taken forward there as well. We had an iterative methodology, so we sought out indicators, we reported back to Winnipeg Foundation staff. They had a wonderful community advisory committee that gave us guidance. Thank you so much to the members of that committee for your thoughtful expert guidance. And we looked, and what we could not find that was already published, Probe Research did a massive survey to fill in the gaps, using a sample, as Sky mentioned, of 1,200 Winnipeggers, which is actually double the regular size, and that was to ensure a robust representative sample of diverse populations, racialized folks, LGBTQ folks, and people with disabilities. The questions in that survey were questions Stats Canada had asked but weren't available at the Winnipeg level, or other pre-existing questions, so we could have comparability, and also we collaborated with the foundation to develop some new questions. And I have to acknowledge there's limitations to this work, as there always is with research, and we were limited by the data that was available. This was all done during COVID as well, over Zoom. So we certainly have a lot more work to do as stats and quant people and with Statistics Canada for data available by race, by ability, and LGBTQ. A big thank you to Vital Signs 2022, Michael Lapata, who's a PhD student in economics, who did the number crunching with us, and Niall Harney, an MA in economic geography, and the Errol Black Chair in labor issues at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives for all of your quantitative work on this. Thank you so much to Sky Bridges, Luann Loveland, Carolina Stetcher, and Courtney Fellman from the Winnipeg Foundation for all of your expertise and countless Zoom meetings. And I worked on this very closely with Mary Agnes Welch from Probe Research, and she could not be here today. And she wished me to pass on to you how great it was to be part of this project, where we really tried to listen to and understand Winnipeggers and then use the data to help improve our city. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Molly. We could not have done it without you. It was a wonderful journey, and the Winnipeg Foundation team thoroughly enjoyed working with you and your organization. I'd like to invite Janelle Shaw up to the stage, who is the Executive Director for Arts Access Ability Network Manitoba, an artist with disabilities and a strong advocate for the deaf and disability art community. Through her work with AANM, Janelle works with other organizations to improve their accessibility for both artists and audience members and supports deaf and disabled artists in all levels of their artistic careers. Beyond AANM, Janelle is a liaison director for the Manitoba Cultural Society of the Deaf and sits on various boards and arts organizations. Please welcome Janelle.
Hi, so as mentioned, my name is Janelle Shaw, and I'm the Executive Director for Arts Accessibility Network Manitoba, or AANM. At AANM, we work with emerging and professional artists to help them advance their artistic careers by providing one-on-one training in grant writing, writing artist statement, bios, and much more. We also provide mentorship opportunities with organizations such as Martha Street Studio, Mentoring Artists for Women's Art, and the Video Pool Media Arts Center. We hold monthly solo exhibitions at our small gallery space at 329 Cumberland Avenue, and hold larger arts festivals at bigger venues such as the Canadian Museum for Human Rights and the Winnipeg Art Gallery. But beyond working with deaf and/or disabled artists, we work, as Sky mentioned, with other arts organizations to increase the accessibility of their programming and events. Ensuring that the deaf and/or disabled artists and patrons have access to the arts is one of AANM's core goals. Access and ease of access is paramount to the well-being of our community. To guarantee that these views and experiences of the deaf and disability community were included in this Vital Signs report, the Winnipeg Foundation reached out to AANM to hold a roundtable discussion with all members to learn more about accessibility and its impact on our community. The attendees spoke about the need of ASL interpretation at all public events such as this one, physical accessibility to public spaces, and how attitudinal barriers affect the deaf and disability community. The opportunity for our community to give their input is essential in ensuring that we are always thinking about accessibility in all public reports and projects. According to the 2017 Canadian Survey on Disability, it's estimated that 1 in 5 Canadians live with disability. With 20% of our population stating that they are deaf and/or disabled, it's essential that access is at the top of our priority list. Being accessible is important not only for the deaf and disability community, but for the larger society as well. Many of the accommodations that we require make life easier for able-bodied folks. When you build a ramp to a stage for disabled performers, you're making it easier to move heavy equipment. When you have a scent-free policy in your space, you're protecting not only those with severe chemical sensitivities, but also those with seasonal allergies. We have a saying in the disability community: if you live long enough, you will join us. Whether through, it's kind of a bad one, but. So therefore, ensuring that accessibility is always being considered guarantees that everyone in our community has full access to the community and its events. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Janelle. Well, I can tell you that I do live long enough. I know I'll be well looked after. Music is so important in the arts, and in my culture, music is medicine. I think everybody should have access to that medicine, and so thank you for all that your organization does, and thank you for coming here and share your experience in participating in Vital Signs. All right, I am now going to invite Courtney Feldman to join the stage with me as we start to unpack and talk about the Vital Signs process. Please give a warm welcome to Courtney.
Hello, everyone. So I'm here to speak briefly, as Sky just mentioned, and to give added insight into our evolutionary process, bringing Molly's comments and Janelle's comments together to share the path that led to the development of this vital signs report. This vital signs project embraced a systemic and intentional approach, using a defined framework to collect our data. As Molly mentioned, this year's Vital Signs project leveraged the Canadian Index of Wellbeing, a framework developed by the University of Waterloo. This is a Canadian-derived, comprehensive, and holistic data framework that speaks directly to community well-being. Its intent is to capture how well Canadians are doing in their lives and in their communities. It's a framework that is developed by Canadians for Canadians when asked, what really matters to you about your community? It's meant to be relatable and accessible to the community. Everyone should be able to see themselves in some capacity within this framework. By starting with and utilizing a well-being framework, it allowed us to take a big, broad approach and look at our community. It also allowed us to establish benchmarks that will support comparable and reflective future assessments and conversations. The first step we took with this framework was to take this nationally developed framework and better align it with the community life here in Winnipeg. As Molly mentioned, through consultation with our internal and external advisory committees, the original national framework was amended to better reflect well-being here in Winnipeg. The main structure remained outlined as here on the screen. However, numerous indicators, which Molly loves, indicators were adapted or eliminated based on feedback and insight into what is relevant to Winnipeg's well-being conversation. This was critical work, and we thank those committees for their input and guidance. The second step was to take this framework and then to populate it. This was when we had the pleasure of working with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives and Probe Research. As Molly mentioned, the focus in this step was on the quantitative secondary data collection, within the CCPA team leading the collection of Winnipeg-centric data with Manitoba and Canadian comparables. And then Probe Research led the development of a community survey designed to fill the gaps and expand on the secondary research data. In summary, that framework that you just saw, or the well-being of Winnipeggers, was quantitatively measured through 8 areas of well-being using 64 indicators, along with 28 survey questions with 1,200 survey respondents. The end result, a populated framework reflective of Winnipeg to now take to the community conversation stage. This next engagement-focused stage was designed to engage diverse and representative voices throughout Winnipeg to bring the data to life. The engagement was designed to validate, expand, and explore this framework as it relates to Winnipeggers' experiences in their communities. This was split into a 3-pronged approach. The first was leadership conversations. Intended to create a connection with community-serving organizations, we explored the framework with leadership of these organizations. The goal was to ensure the Winnipeg Foundation's Vital Signs Initiative reflects the community-serving organizations and what they are seeing every day, and that this final report is a viable and usable tool for community. A second prong of this approach was general community engagement. This was designed to create an opportunity for the general public and community to engage in conversation about their well-being. These conversations provided our team insight into what brings Winnipeggers hope and what challenges them as it relates to their experiences with their community's well-being. And the third prong to this approach was targeted community engagement. This stage of engagement, as Janelle spoke of, enabled project staff and team to go out to community, to listen and to learn how individuals in the community are experiencing well-being. The goal was to connect with those voices that are not always heard, those that are not always represented or reflected in the data, and that those who raise their voices. In summary, an intentional and inclusive approach was taken in developing this engagement process. And through this, we welcomed conversation with nonprofit organizations, Indigenous-led organizations, Black and people of color-led organizations, and the general public. It was from this community engagement that 4 underlying themes emerged. These are themes that we heard over and over again in our conversation with community. Connectivity, that being connected to people and community is essential to well-being. Community. How community is defined is different for everyone. That means a community could be a group of people sharing common experiences, a neighborhood, a culture, or an organization. Culture. Culture was spoken about as connecting to people with common experiences, a sense of belonging to a social institution, and celebrating customs. And systems. Thank you to Elder Belinda for reminding us of the ultimate and most important system of family unit. What we heard here about our institutional systems is that we heard that our institutional systems are intended to support well-being are not delivered or viewed necessarily from a holistic and comprehensive well-being perspective. So what do we take away from these 4 themes? Feeling connected to a community is essential to well-being. If you're not connected, you're not well. What challenges our ability to connect are the methods of delivery and connection. One size does not fit all. And that there is tension between how our institutional systems embrace and connect to our cultures and our communities. These representing themes and the voices from the community, in addition to the data collected, led us to the project's key priorities, which I'll now hand over to Sky to share.
So through this research, we identified 6 key issues as identified. They're identified because they were coming up consistently in terms of the conversations that we were having in community on the qualitative side. And on the quantitative side, the data is showing us that there's severe gaps within these areas that need critical attention. Those 6 priorities are a sense of well-being. It's so important that we connect with each other as a community and have that sense of well-being and belonging. Trust in institutions. How are we feeling about those institutions that we rely on for our everyday operating in society? Mental health. Mental health is critical in terms of no matter what age that you are. And the data that we showed shows that there's challenges throughout our population in all age groups. Addictions and opioid crisis. We'll dive a little bit deeper on that in another slide. Hunger, food security is also critical and has come up as an issue that we need to have an immediate attention on, and as well as experiences of homelessness. We're going to dive deeper onto a few slides of data of some of these items, but you'll be able to read and look at all the data in the report when you leave today. One thing that I'll mention, as we have sharing with you today, we've been talking about how we took a particular approach on the sample size to ensure that we spoke to those who are often marginalized communities. So throughout the research, because we had a sample size that represented them, it means that whenever they were not showing in the norm within the statistic, we reported on it. And there'll be some examples that we share with some of the data to you tonight so you can understand what I'm talking about. So the first point that we want to share with you, diving deeper into, is a sense of belonging. Winnipeggers overall experienced a slightly higher sense of belonging than the national average, 72% versus 69% in 2018. It plummeted in 2022 to 61%. Indigenous people surveyed have a higher sense of belonging, 69%, than the average. Black and people of color have a lower sense of belonging post-pandemic than the average at 57%. I truly believe that we as a community can reverse the trend in building a sense of belonging. You're going to find out later in the presentation how we're going to have continued conversations where we can dream together to hear your input of how you can address this. When I look at the sense of connection and belonging, I think of the arts community and how music and plays and bringing people together can connect. Throughout all the other types of agencies that do work, I think that you're going to see yourselves in here, and we're going to have conversations around how you could be a part of us addressing these critical issues that we found in vital signs. I will now pass it back over to Courtney.
Addictions and the use of opioids transcends economic and social classes. We found here substance overdoses amid the pandemic hit a 4-year high. In 2021, 407 drug-related deaths were reported in Manitoba, more than double reported in 2018 and 2019. Of the deaths reported in 2021, the use of at least one opioid, including fentanyl, contributed to 277 of these deaths, up from 254 in 2020. These deaths are indicative of the prevalence of serious addictions and the safety of the drug supply. It was noted that there is a significant lag in this reporting, delaying much needed data to provide services to those in need. Food insecurity, the uncertainty of the availability of food, is connected with our well-being. Poor health, chronic illness, depression, and lack of emotional and practical support. Since 2019, the number of visits during the month of October to Winnipeg's main food bank almost doubled. The number of households accessing harvest is up by 96%. The pandemic compounded the need for those who already struggle with low-paying jobs, irregular work, unemployment, fixed incomes, and health issues. Food bank usage has more than doubled in 3 years. In 2019, there were over 6,000 households using food banks in Winnipeg, compared to over 11,000 households in 2022. During our community conversations, it was noted that many community-based organizations in the charitable sector provided food to clients for the first time ever, going above and beyond their mandates to ensure their community members had food. Safe, affordable, well-kept housing is the first step to gaining employment, food, and security, access to social services, education, recreation, and healthcare. The experience of homelessness often occurs at transition points in people's lives, being released from institution, aging out of care, family breakdown. And our social safety net is not always coordinated to aid those in this transition. As affordable housing is a challenge across the country, and the need is at a crisis point here in Winnipeg. In Winnipeg, for every 20 low-income renters, there are 3 available units, compared to Regina, where there are 8 units available, and Calgary, where there are 9 units available for every 20 low-income renters.
We now have a video that we're going to play to close out our conversations on vital signs. Hey everyone, and welcome. This is the grand opening of the Nesta Wea Trail. The Winnipeg Foundation is so proud to sponsor this trail through the generosity of our donors, where you're going to get to see signs like this and learn more about vital signs and the impact in our community. So here in the Nesta Wea Trail, you can see signs like this and learn more about vital signs and how we're going to be making impact in community. And one of those areas is the environment. We have to focus more and do better, and one way to do it is to commute. Heck, there's even people using this trail to commute. You can walk, you can ice bike, heck, you could even bring your dog. So come on down and learn more about how the Winnipeg Foundation is helping community do better. One of the things that we've learned around vital signs is you told us that friends are important, and they absolutely are, because it helps with mental health, helps being connected, supported, laughing together, and being active together is one great way to spend time with your friend right here on the Nesta Wea Trail. And hey, we're talking about friends. I need a friend in this shot. Luann, hey, all right. So we are going to continue to do our best here at the Winnipeg Foundation, working on the data and working to make a difference for our community. So make sure you gather with your friends right here at the Nesta Wea Trail. I have a great creative team that I'm working with that helps me, deliver the message in such a wonderful way. And my friend Luann just sitting right over there. So now we're going to talk about how does the Vital Signs 2022 connect into the Foundation's strategic plan. Our strategic plan is built on evidence-based decisions, and our role for the Foundation is to ensure that we have a process in place that can respond to community needs. And so this strategic plan is one component, the Vital Signs is one component of it, but it goes through to inform our strategic plan, and I'm excited to share with you content within that now in our presentation. I'll tell you, it was a very long road on the strategic plan, probably I would say well over a year, a lot of rigor, a lot of conversation, and I just have a big thanks to the staff, the management, and the board in supporting this entire process. And this process was particularly different and important than other ones because, as you know, the pandemic has really placed a different strain in our community. We find ourselves in a sea of change right now, and it was so important that this strategic plan really contemplated that and understand where is community, how is it different, because we know that it is. And this research in vital signs has allowed us to look at that and have conversations in terms of how we can move forward and support this community in a new way. I can appreciate how some of the statistics that we're sharing can make you kind of feel like, oh man, this is really bad. Are we gonna get out of this? Absolutely we will. I truly believe that anything in life, no matter what you're dealing with, you always have a choice. And that choice is what I see in this room. The agencies that are doing the work day to day, the donors who are always caring and wanting to know more information of how they can support, staff, board, the answer is all in this room. I also want to acknowledge that as we were building this strategic plan, we had the incredible generosity of late Mrs. Bergen, who gave the largest donation in Canadian history to the Winnipeg Foundation and extension to this great city of Winnipeg. I want to update you and just talk a little bit about the fact that that gift will not be fully realized for probably another year and a half. But when we were developing the plan, there was a point in time where we knew that that gift could be coming to the Winnipeg Foundation, and there is some thought around it. Ultimately, what that gift will do will allow us to have a deeper impact on some of the strategies that you're seeing in the strategic plan. But there's also still room to dream and imagine on what that looks like, because as I share with you today this strategic plan, you're going to see there's still opportunities for you to dream with us and help to define that direction. One of the most proudest moments I've ever had as being CEO was this. We had worked a really long time on our strategic plan. There was many touch points with staff, with board, through our research into community. And we presented the strategic plan to all the staff, all of it at once. Finally said, this is the entire strategic plan, this is what we've been working on, what do you think? And the reaction was excited, proud, pumped, wonderful, nervous, absolutely daunted. Yeah, because we're gonna do a big, bold strategic plan. There's new elements in here. But I have to say, the energy in the room was electric. I was so excited and I was so happy because the staff saw in this what excited them to see that we can make a difference. So this is where I talk about earlier, I was saying we always have a choice, and I'm really excited about the choice that is made in the strategic plan and how we can help to support community. So a big thank you to our staff. So the strategic plan contemplates where we are going to evolve in some new directions. But I want to say what we still are at the core, and that is a 360 grantor that supports all causes. That's not changing. What we're presenting to you today is some areas that we're going to evolve around. Certainly for the Winnipeg Foundation, there are things that happen in society that we do not expect. We've experienced that. And so regardless of the direction and what has been laid out in the strategic plan, we are still going to be connected into community hearing. What are those unexpected challenges coming up and making space for that? And so it's important, that we still continue to be a 360 grantor supporting all causes. So one of the biggest, I would say, fundamental thoughts in our strategic plan that has guided a lot of it is this statement. We cannot grant our way out of community's challenges. Something that we have heard from the agencies and everything that the community challenges that we see around us. And so as an organization, foundation, we said, well, how can we evolve past grant dollars to support community? You will read in the strategic plan some new exciting initiatives, from us trying to figure out how we can support access to capital. We're going to be commissioning a research project that's going to look at that and understand, what is the total capital needs in the community? And what are the barriers so that maybe we can understand new solutions for agencies to get access to capital. We're also going to look at the ESG lens on our investment strategies and how does that work in terms of us making decisions in our capital at work to support community. We're also going to look at where we can employ research to understand the systems, that are having undesirable outcomes, what Belinda spoke about. So I'm really excited as you look through that plan, you're going to see all kinds of examples of how we're going to go beyond understanding that granting dollars alone cannot solve the challenges in our community. There's other two, I would say, items other than the statement I just shared with you that really kind of explains a bit about the direction of the strategic plan and how we are evolving. Number one, we know where we want to have an impact because of what Vital Signs has told us. We shared with you today 6 critical issues that have come up. And the other component of that, of understanding them, okay, so now we've got this data, it's told us there's some critical issues in there. Do we have the answers right now on how to address it? No. And that's the second part of what you'll see within our strategic plan is that's where you come in. We want to dream together on how we can address those critical issues as being identified within Vital Signs so that we can change the community's direction together. The framework of the strategic plan has 4 pillars. Community impact. It's about finding ways to address the 6 critical issues as identified in Vital Signs, and you'll read some other strategies within that pillar as well. Generosity. How can we support a more generous community and province? I mean, I celebrate, as I know you do, that Manitoba is the most generous province in Canada. But year over year, there's been challenges on that, and we believe that we can invite more people to be aware of the challenges in our community so we can bring forward more generosity. Community endowments. At the core, as I mentioned, we're still here to create endowments as they support community for multi-generations and into the future. We are benefiting today from the gifts of those before us generations past, and we will continue that tradition as the core in our model. And then under champion, we will identify some critical needs that are complex, that we want to have a deeper impact on, and I'm going to share 2 of those with you this evening. You can't have pillars without foundations, or otherwise you're going to fall over. And so in our plan, you'll read that we have foundations that support the work that we do that is critical, from community building and involved in Down Manitoba to digital transformation internal to the organization to looking at communications and engagement with community. And then lenses. This is very important that as we make decisions and as we move forward on implementing our pillars, that we're thinking a lens through climate change. It's a huge challenge of our generation and many generations that we come together, the whole world is facing. So as we develop our strategies, we should always be looking through the lens of how is this affecting climate change and making sure that we're walking in a good way and in balance with Mother Earth. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and truth and reconciliation. Extremely important lenses as we do this work. As we build our strategies, we have to always be thinking of how we are weaving in this as part of our narrative and making sure that everyone is at the table. It's always a question when we move forward is asking who is not here, who is not being included. And this is an ongoing journey. You never arrive. It's kind of like, I think of it as listening skills. You're always constantly having to use that and pay attention and listen for new information. And it's really important that we keep moving down that path. And finally, people, culture, and structure. It's our people that drive forward this. What kinds of supports do our people need to have in order for them to be successful? Training and development in order to do all this great, amazing work in supporting the pillars. The very first strategy that I want to share with you within the champion section is about supporting children, youth, and families. As many of you are aware, we have over 9,000 children in care. We can almost fill up the Canada Life hockey arena. I think we can do better. And I know that there are agencies that are doing incredible work within this area already, and they need more support. And so on this particular strategic initiative, it's kind of a bookend. One, we want to support families to decrease the number of children going into the welfare system. So that's focusing on keeping families together, right? We just heard Belinda kind of talk about that and what she witnessed and experiences around that. We have a wonderful program right now where we're working with an agency already that is keeping families together and it's having great success. So we want to look at how do we expand that? How do we do better at that? That's dealing with the root cause. On the other side of it, the symptoms of the system is we want to have better supports for children who are aging out of the system. For any of you who are parents in the room, I'm sure that you would agree with me that you don't stop being a parent when they turn 18, right? That work continues on. And so we want to look at how we can support kids aging out of the system. And this is about also understanding what are the pathways, the undesirable pathways out that they find themselves, and looking for successful pathways out for them to be successful. I believe a focus on this will help support a greater Winnipeg and help us turn the tide on Manitoba being the child poverty capital of Canada. The second strategy is the community area for revitalization and equity care neighborhood. So this is about supporting, this plan is really about supporting and focusing in on well-being for a particular segment of our population living within a particular area. Many of our most vulnerable citizens live in an area of our community that is in much need of enhanced supports and leadership. Together, we can reimagine and invest in its future. And this is best illustrated by me sharing the map and the area with you. So the area that is highlighted there in the center is the community area for revitalization and equity. This is people's home. Thank you. This is people's home. This is where they live. And I know that there are agencies that are doing incredible work right now to support those that are living here. And so for the Winnipeg Foundation, we see this through the lens of well-being. Just like Vital Signs is measuring where we are in well-being of all of community, I know that if you go through this area, the people who live here are at the lower end of well-being within our study, they would show up. And so I'm truly excited about how the Winnipeg Foundation can work with agencies who are working in this area. This is not about the Winnipeg Foundation saying that we are going to lead development here. This is about us saying we are joining those who are already working in this area. We also know that there are other people in Winnipeg who are experiencing the same challenges as those who live in this area. We need to start somewhere. We do know that the strategies that we build and supports in place in this community will affect others who are living in other areas outside of this. This allows us a focus point and a starting point to build in supports that will radiate out to support others who have the same challenges as those who live in this area. So what is our approach? So as mentioned, we need to convene stakeholders. And this approach that I'm talking about is for both of those areas, for kids in care, as well as the care revitalization area. We want to convene all stakeholders around who are currently working and learn from them, understand where are they at, where are their challenges, where are the gaps, how can the Winnipeg Foundation help? In many cases, these are complex systems that have created undesirable outcomes. And because of this complexity, we need to spend some time understanding it at a deeper level so that we may be able to then commit material resources over 4 years to help change the direction of the course of the people who find themselves within these systems. And thirdly, it's about conducting a range of research. We know that there is a lot of research that is out there. We would certainly use what is there, but as we talk to partners, and we've already talked to some of them saying, I really wish we had a study on X because it would help us do a better job over here, because many of the agencies are under-resourced, and so research and development is really key in helping us to understand of how we can move the needle and move forward in supporting these groups. So here's where we continue the conversation. As I mentioned, this is just a starting point. And we will be having vital conversations with our agency engagement plan. So basically what's going to end up happening is we want you to come and dream with us at these sessions. We want to know how you can affect those 6 critical issues in Vital Signs, as well as other things that you'll read within the Vital Signs report. And we want to hear from you on what you've heard, read, and had time to reflect on. We're going to be hosting April meetings for all cause areas, and invitations will be on the way, and this is an opportunity to dream together and hear from you. And I'm very excited about continuing those conversations, because I know as you read deep into this material, we're going to have a wonderful time engaging and learning and talking about it, and that is going to move into action on the side of the foundation in terms of how our granting dollars can flow. Secondly, donors. We want to have vital conversations with you too. We want you to also come dream with us. We want to hear from you on your observations in vital signs. We want to hear from you on what you've heard and what you've read. And as I mentioned, we'll be handing those out tonight. And I know that you're going to be so excited tonight, sitting there at your table, reading through and emailing me the next day, because I just know it's going to be hard to put down. But, you know, it really is truly, I say, like a wonderful, beautiful document, and I know it's going to spark conversation. I have no doubt that it is, and I look forward to those conversations. And our invitations and meeting with our donors will be taking place from April until May. Finally, I would like to leave you with a thought, with a question to walk away with today. We invited you here to dream together with us. What choices can we make to help build a Winnipeg where community life flourishes for all? Thank you, Chimagwech, for joining us today. Please, as you leave, spend more time gathering and chatting and saying hello to those maybe you haven't seen because you saw them on the other end of the theater when you sat down. But I truly thank you so much, from my heart to yours, for joining us, for caring about community. This is just the beginning of a conversation which I'm so excited about, and I look forward to speaking with you all at future engagements. Thank you. Good evening.